Here we have a server that has an endpoint to see a list of users. We can also log in. In this video, we'll use JSON Web Tokens to handle authentication. We'll begin by changing the login endpoint to produce a token and send it to the client upon successful login. If we got the code, we're using bcrypt. We can see on line 2. And then on line 27, we're using bcrypt to compare the username and password that is being sent in the body. We'll begin by changing this functionality to use JSON Web Tokens instead. There are different libraries that we can use for this. We'll pick one called JSON Web Token. The first step is to install the library. So we'll come here and say npm I. And the library is called JSON Web Token, all lowercase. It is maintained by the good folks at Auth0, an identity provider as a service. So it has very good support from the community. Once the package is installed, we can go ahead and require at the top. We're going to call it JWT for short. This would be a JSON Web Token library. Once we have it, we can go ahead and use it. When working with JSON Web Tokens, the operation that we do on the server side upon successful login is called signing the token. So for this, we're going to go down to the login and make some changes. This will continue mostly to be the same. We'll look for the user by the username. Once we have the user, then instead of doing this portion right here, we're going to change that to generate a token. So right before we send the response, and it's important to know that when using sessions and cookies, the library that we were using will send the cookie automatically. You don't have to do anything manual like we are about to do here. So once we verify that the credentials are correct, we're going to create a token here. We could add the functionality to generate the token in line here, on line 29, but we will need to do the same thing when we do the register. So in those cases, since we know we're going to be using it in 2 places, instead we're going to create a function that will generate the token for us. And you can imagine that this is something that you later can extract into an auth service that will do anything related to handling the tokens. So we generate a token passing the user so that we could save some information about the user inside the token. Of course, this function does not exist, so we need to go and write it. We'll write it right down here just to have it close to where our endpoint is. Again, imagine this being in a separate file that you could just require. So generate token function is going to take the user, that's the first argument there and only. And ultimately, what we want to do is return a call to the sign method of JSON Web Token. This method needs at least 3 parameters. The first one is the payload, or the data that we'd like to add into the token. The second one is a secret. And this secret could come from anywhere. It's just a string. This secret is going to be used to decrypt and encrypt the token before sending it. And then an options object. Okay, we don't have any of those created yet, so let's go and start with the payload. I'll say the payload is going to be an object, and we can add any information that we want in there, but there are some of the properties of this object that we want to set according to the standard. The first one is the subject. And the subject is, who is this token about? This will be translated into the according to the standard, the sub property that will go into the header of the token. Normally, this is the user ID. After that, we can add any other data that we want. For instance, we could add the username, just to see that we can save some data in there. Use that username. And of course, any other data that we may want to store in the token. Just remember that the token is something that's going to go into the client. We're going to send it back to the client. And it is not encrypted, it is signed. The signature is protected by the secret, but the content of the token can be seen by the client just by decoding it. It's just a base 64 encode, the header of the token and the body of the token, the payload. So no sensitive information should ever be stored in the token. As a matter of fact, you should keep the token as light as possible, right? To save bandwidth. With this, we have a simple payload that we can use. And then the next one would be the secret. So we can create a secret right here in line. Then we'll go ahead and extract that out into a separate file later. And this could be any secret that you want, right? Just make it a secure secret. And again, this is the secret that only the server knows. And this is how the server is going to sign the token. And when the token comes back on a new request, we're going to use this same secret to decode and verify that the token is correct and that it hasn't been tampered with in the client. This is how we protect it. And the last one is an options object. And here we can configure quite a few things about the token. But for now, we keep it simple and do at least the expires. And with this library, we will do simple things like maybe 1 day or maybe 8 hours. If you want to see more of the options that you could set on JWT, just go to the library on npmjs.com. You'll find the link to the library. So with this, we have enough to sign the token and return it back to our call over here. So now that we have the token, we can go ahead and add it to the response that we're sending. So far, we're only sending the message. So all we have to do is also add the token here. Let's go try it out and see if we get, in fact, the token back when we log in. So again, we used to get only the message. Now we're going to log in, send in the right credentials, and voila, we have the token in there. Let me show you real quick what I meant by do not add any sensitive information in there. If we visit JWT.io on the browser, they have this debugger, and we can paste our token in there. And you'll see, even though it shows up as an invalid signature because we don't have the secret register here, we can see the content of the token. We can see right there that the algorithm is, HS256, that the type is JSON with token, and the subject is one that happens to be the ID of the user by the username of student, and you can see the username right there. Those two were calculated by the library. This is when the token was issued. This is a Unix formatted date, right? And the expiration is calculated based on the code that we wrote for the expires at option. Expires in 8 hours. So the token is visible, the payload or the data that is in the token is visible by anyone by just decoding the token. So keep that in mind. Don't add any sensitive information in there. So with that, we have a way to produce a token and send it to the client. There's something I'd like to do before we go. We are now have this secret hard-coded in here, but instead I'd like to have this somewhere else and just export it. So let's go and create a folder. Let's call it config. And in here, we can add a file and then use this file to save any secrets that our application might have. Not only the JWT secret, but any other secret. So we're going to call this file secrets. And then export an object from there. And have a property for our JWT secret. In a production application, you probably are going to be reading this from the environment. Like so. But during development, you can provide a default value and then just make this any secret that you may want. And there you have it. We now have an object that we export with the secrets, and it's got a property called JWT secret that if it is provided, let's say in production, you're going to provide a JWT secret that is different from the one that you use in development, but we also provide a simple a default value as a fallback when doing development. So all we have to do is now go ahead and import that at the top. Let's call it secrets. And it will come from, step outside of there, and go into config and grab the secrets file. Now, where we were using our secret before, instead of having it hard-coded like this, we could just go ahead and say, hey, bring my secret from secrets. JWT secret, like so. Now this is no longer needed. Let's go try it out to see if it's still working. Go and do a login, and we could see that we can log in and get a brand new token each time. Just like that. Now we have functionality to produce and send the token back to the client. It is their responsibility of the client to hold on to that token and store it. In the next video, we'll write some code to verify that the token is correct and probably use that as part of our middleware to check that the user has been logged in and that the token is valid. See you then.